Hey everybody, how's it going? Ben here and welcome back to another PUBG console video. Today we're going to be looking at all of my controller settings for PUBG on Xbox, but they're just as applicable if you play on PlayStation or even with a controller on PC with a few little tweaks that I will explain as we go. I've done a few settings videos before, but I felt like we could do with a new one where I go over a bit more detail of what all the settings do and what ones you should change and ones you maybe shouldn't change if you're a new player joining us in 2022. I'll put a full chapter listing down below, so if there's one part of the video you want to see particularly, you can skip straight to that. I'm going to talk about the basic differences in the default controller schemes. I'm going to tell you about the controller that I use. I'm going to show you my sensitivity settings and then explain maybe what you might want to tweak rather than matching those exactly. And then I'll also show you my gameplay settings and then finally my custom key bindings that allow me to do some really cool stuff like hold to crouch, tap to reload, and take meds extra fast. If you have any questions about this video, then drop a comment down below or jump over to my live stream on twitch.tv/thebeardguys and feel free to ask me there. So the default settings options that you get in PUBG are Type A, Type B, and Type C. You can see I use a custom one, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. And the main difference is that on Type A, you will tap to go into ADS to aim down your sights. In Type B, you'll hold down left trigger and you'll hold to ADS, which a lot of you are probably more familiar with if you played Call of Duty or Battlefield or something like that. And then Type C is more of a claw grip kind of style. If you play claw grip, then you might prefer that. You can then customize those settings much further by going into the controller settings tab here and setting up custom bindings. You can see these are the default ones, Type A, Type B, and Type C, and it tells you everything they do under all of these different tabs. I've got my custom bindings here, but we're going to go over those a little bit later on in the video. So at the moment, controller wise, I'm using a Power A Fusion Pro 2. I got this a few months back. Before that, I used to use an Elite controller, not the Elite 2. I had an Elite that lasted me for years, but it got pretty worn down by the end of it and it was falling apart and it was stick drifting really badly. So I got a new controller. All I really wanted was a controller that had paddles on it. I didn't want to spend a crazy amount of money on an Elite 2 or a Scuff, and the Fusion Pro 2 looked like a pretty decent option. It's a wired controller, but it's about half the price or less than the Elite or the Scuff, and I definitely recommend it as a good budget option if you want a controller with paddles on it and you don't mind it being wired. The Elite also served me very well, and I'm sure Scuffs are going to be great if you've got the budget for that. Any of those controllers are going to be great. You can do just fine on a default, but if you want paddles to give you a bit more flexibility, then one of these controllers is going to help you. I'll put links down in the description below to all of these different controllers so you can go and check them out on Amazon. And when we get to the custom controller settings in just a minute, we'll touch upon why those paddles are so critical to my controller setup. But first, let's jump in and just have a look at my basic sensitivity settings, which I'm sure lots of you will be eager to see. I'm going to run through these quickly just so you can look at them and then you can go away if that's all you wanted to see. And then I'm going to talk through these in a bit more detail. These are my settings. Here they are. I haven't changed them for a little bit actually, which I think is good because I got in the habit of tweaking them quite a lot over the last couple of years. I've kind of settled into these settings and that's serving me quite well. But now I'm going to talk through these in a bit more detail. So inverted axis is just what you set based on your preference, what you always use. Don't switch that if you don't normally switch that. Inverted X, I'm sure no one uses, surely. Dead zones, you generally want to have these as low as possible. Dead zone is how much you have to push the sticks in order for it to register input. So the lower you have this, then the quicker it's going to react to the inputs you give it. If you find you're getting stick drift in game, you've got these down low and then your camera is just drifting around, then try bringing these up a bit and you can use these to counter stick drift. On my old Elite controller, it was so screwed up. I had these on like 20, 25 just so I didn't get stick drift during games. But now with the new controller, I have them on 10 and 5. Generally, just have them as low as possible. When you get stick drift, just knock them up 1 or 2 and you'll probably be happy. Vibration is completely up to you. I have it off. Forward running sensitivity, I have on 30. I've tweaked this a bit over the years. Same with movement sensitivity. Now have that on 80. And for me, these work quite well just to make the movement feel fairly fluid, and the speed at which they go from walking to running just feels natural to me. That works nicely for me. Would recommend matching that. Vertical sends multiplier is an important one. I've got this on 70, and this affects how quickly your vertical recoil is going to go up or down. So you see I've got this on 70 at the moment, for example. And let me just shoot something. So I've got an M4 that's absolutely kitted out at the moment, and we just shoot at this and control it nicely there. You can see that's nice and tight. easy to control. But if I now change that setting and we say put that like right up from 70 to like max, then you'll see when I move this is me just delicately touching my right stick and it absolutely flies up and down. And if I try and control my recoil, it's going to be much harder because I'm just getting used to it. Now, I don't think it's super critical necessarily what you have this set at. I would say it's more critical to just leave it alone once you have set it, because that's going to affect your muscle memory. There's no real trick to suddenly having great recoil control in this game. There's certainly some tips, but generally it's just going to be practice and muscle memory. And if you leave that setting the same, you'll get used to how much you need to push your right stick up or down, depending if you're inverted, in order to control your recoil. If you keep changing that, then that's going to change how much you need to push your stick in order to control your sprays. So for me, obviously I've played the game absolutely loads for the last 4 years, and it's just very easy to control, especially something like an M4 with a comp and all the rest of the goodies on it is no problem whatsoever, even when you're not crouching. But if I change that setting, I definitely would find my aiming and my recoil control would be much worse. As a side note, if you're playing with controller on PC, this is a really important setting. If you match all the rest of my settings, you'll probably do okay, but I would then bring vert sends multiplier up a little bit because the recoil is slightly stronger on PC, so it won't feel natural when you go from this straight onto PC. Your recoil is going to be very hard to control, so you'll want to turn it up to counter the extra recoil on PC. So moving on from that, I run a really high general sensitivity. I like to have high general and then fairly low on my ADS. Having it on 18 out of 20 means I can spin around fairly quickly and react to situations. It allows you to be pretty quick with looking around and stuff like this. Some people like to run pretty low. There's plenty of very good players who run much lower than this, but I like to run 18. It's a nice balance of speed of movement without losing control by moving around too fast. Then when I go into ADS, you can see that my ADS speed is quite low. If I push my stick all the way, you can see it's still pretty slow moving around. And I tend to pre-aim around in general like this, and then I'll zoom in and find a target, and then I'll zoom back in and find a target. Rather than I don't sit here sort of dragging my scope around, which takes ages because my ADS sends is so low. So 18 general works for me. I think if you're a brand new player, you might find that a little bit twitchy. I'd recommend starting that lower, even as far down as maybe 12 or 14, and then just bringing it up as you get familiar with it. If I went and took like a 2-month break from playing PUBG, I would probably bring this down like 3 notches before I played again and just build it up as I get used to it. Vehicle driver sends is just how quickly you look around in vehicles. It's not that important. 10's fine, but you can crank it up more if you want. Aim acceleration is something you tend to have on if you have low ADS settings like I do. You'll find people either have their optic sends up much higher than this and no aim acceleration, or they have them low like this with some aim acceleration. Aim acceleration basically just increases the speed that your camera's moving when you push the stick far to the side. So it allows you to move a little bit quicker than this is my normal slow speed. And if I push the stick all the way over, it speeds up as it rotates. And it just helps you out with those extreme situations when something's moving quite fast by and your normal ADS speed can't keep up with that. If you're running really high sends on your aiming sensitivities, then you don't need aim acceleration because you're already moving very quickly. But I can't control that. It's too fast for me. I can't stop it on a point with high sends that some of the people out there run. Aim acceleration rate I have on 6. That feels like a nice balance for me. It's not too high, not too low. Over the shoulder aiming sends I have in the middle. This is when you're soft aiming basically. For me, it's LB on type B-ish controls. This is your soft aim. So again, it's kind of slow, but a little bit faster than my ADS. And this is for when you're shooting generally at pretty close range. Inventory cursor sensitivity, I wouldn't really worry about too much. I've just left that on 6. And you can change these to decimals, by the way, these days. You didn't used to be able to do that. So if you fancy a cheeky 10.1 or a 10.2, you're very welcome to try that. Moving down further, we've got the optic send. So 1x is your red dot, and then 2x, 3x, all the way to 15x for the rest of your scopes. I've got everything on 5. Well, 5 for 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 4 on 6x and 8x, and 20 on the 15x. And that just works nicely for me. Like I said, I tend to pre-aim with my general sends, and then I'll aim in just on a target with my scope, and then I'll zoom out and then aim back in rather than dragging that side around. So those are my sensitivity settings. I'm just going to show you my gameplay settings so you can see if there's anything there of interest to you, and then we'll go on to custom controller setup. So in the gameplay settings, there's a lot of interesting stuff. You can set up colorblind mode if you want to change the color of blood or the red zone, the play zone, stuff like that. A lot of people do that. I've got mine on default, but you'll find a lot of players have that changed. You can set your crosshair color. I've got mine on red. And then if you go down, you can change how loot looks, whether it has the glow or the pulse. I've got it on glow. You can then customize all your reticles. So your red dot, you can change the shape of it. You can change the color of it. You can do the same for the holo. You can do the same for a bunch of other sites. It's quite a useful little menu for tweaking those to get things looking how you want. Also, you can change the brightness of some of them, the red dot, the holo, and a few of the others down here. You'll also find default firing mode for various guns here. I think for new players, they're meant to default to full auto now, but if you're not on full auto when you pick up a gun, then you can change that here. So you pick up an AR and it can be on full auto or burst or single fire, whatever you like. You can also change the TPP aim camera position. So this is basically where this is going to reset to every time you aim. So if I do this, and then I've looked over this shoulder, when I go back into it, it's back over this shoulder. And that's basically that default position you can configure using that setting. As well as that, there's also an auto reload setting you can enable there, which is very useful. Auto equip attachments, which you can configure. So I have it for attachments, but not scopes. You can do auto replace attachments, which is very useful. Basically, when you pick up a different gun, it will try and put all of the attachments from your current gun onto that new gun as you pick it up, rather than just leaving them on your current gun and chucking it on the floor. Replace weapon skin basically puts your own skins on stuff as you pick it up, and vehicle skin is much the same. There's also the hide helmet setting, which you might find if you can't see your helmet in game, that's because you've got this enabled. It doesn't affect what other players can see. They can always see what helmet you're wearing. It's just a cosmetic thing if you want to see your fancy hairdo rather than your helmet. You'll also find the radio message thing. I've had a few people asking about pinging. I've got mine on enabled, option 1 and enable, and then I can click in the right stick and it will place these markers on the map. So if you're wondering how to do that, that is how it works for me. It's a nice new feature and it's pretty simple to do. You can also set continuous item usage. I've got it on bandages. That means if I start using bandages, it will just keep taking them until I tell it to stop or I get to max health. And then you can also enable action queuing. This is a new thing. I've turned it on. It's disabled by default. You probably want to turn it on. I've not really noticed much different with it, to be honest, but a lot of people are asking for it, so it is there if you want to have a look at it. Below that, it's just a load of stuff for observer mode. If you're playing custom games, hosting one, you can fly around as observer and that affects that, but we won't be covering that today. On audio, there's not really anything interesting there. You can tweak stuff if you want. And then on graphics, I've got these set. My brightness is jacked up to the max. My FOV is on 90, not that I play much FPP, and I'm on frame rate priority mode. You get this option, I think, if you play on the Series X and the PS5. I guess I don't think you get it on some of the older consoles, but on the Series X, you get the option to change both of these. I have it on frame rate and that works really nicely for me. So lastly, we're just going to really quickly look at my custom controller settings. So if you go into this menu here, you can basically do reset bindings with X, and it will give you the option to set up your controller based on one of the default presets, type B, type A, type C. Mine are based off type B, and I don't make many changes to them, but what I have changed is this one here. So you can see I've got, this is hold to crouch. You select these options, you select the thing you want to bind to it. So I could make that ADS or I could make it whatever, but you can see I've got it as hold to crouch, and then on B I've just got this as tap to prone. And then what I do is I have one paddle on the back of my controller on the left hand side, and I've bound that to down on the D-pad. So what that basically means is I hold down the paddle and that makes me hold to crouch, and I let go and I stand up. And that's really useful to have on the left hand side of my controller, because then I press in the left trigger to aim and I just kind of squeeze in the whole left hand side of my controller, and I'll ADS and I'll crouch, and when I let go I'll stand up. And so that's why you'll notice that I pretty much always crouch every time I spray, very seamlessly, kind of in one movement, because I have this binding set up. I don't have to hold down B to do that or tap B to go in and out of crouch. I can just do it using the paddle and left trigger to ADS and crouch. I find that super useful. It's really, really helpful. Crouching gives you a big bonus to recoil control. So I definitely recommend trying that out if you have a controller with paddles. You could also potentially bind that in another way without paddles. You could try a claw grip and use LB as your hold to crouch or something like that. Another option a lot of people use on paddles is having your paddles set up to do your peaking, to do your leaning. For me, I don't bother. That was what I was going to do originally when I got a paddle controller, but I just use clicking in the sticks as a default, and then I just use my one lonely paddle for my crouching. This is a really weird looking building, by the way. So you can change all sorts of stuff in here. Anything you want, you can pretty much change to a different button. So you can go absolutely crazy and change anything you want. I've not really tweaked other stuff here, but there is one other useful thing I'd recommend checking out. And that is if you click in the right stick, it brings up this menu. You can then tap LB and RB, and then these two different pages. And what this does is it creates hotkeys that will perform actions. So over on the right here, I've set it so that pressing LB and Y will take a first aid. You can see there's lots of different stuff here you can pick. You can do meds, you can change vehicle seats, you can equip throwables, and this means that I can just press LB and Y, LB and X, LB and B, LB and A to take meds without having to bother opening my menu, without having to do anything else. I can just take them while standing still. So you can see while standing here, I've got some meds, and rather than having to go in and do this, I can just do LB and A, take a bandage, LB and B, take a boost, LB and X, and LB and Y to take these, which is really useful for taking meds very quickly. And the other one I have set up here is the vehicle driver seat. I have RB and A. So this means I can just hold RB, tap A, and I move straight to the vehicle driver seat. You can also move straight to a vehicle driver seat by holding down A when you're in a vehicle, but by using RB and A to tap, it's just very slightly quicker than the hold. You can set up equip throwables and other things in here, or quick emotes, but I haven't used those. I have tried them in the past, but I just never really bother using them. You could also do stuff in here like tap to reload is an option that you can set within these settings. For me, I don't really like it. I tried it out before, but I found it kind of interfered with other things I tried to do, picking up items and reviving and stuff, but definitely give it a go. It is an option in here. You can see the little green down arrow means hold. So if you find one without that, that is the tap rather than the hold option. There you go. So this is the tap to reload and this is hold to interact, but I've just got it on the default, which is hold to reload. So that is everything for my settings, my custom setup, my controller, and everything else. Hopefully that fairly comprehensive guide covers everything you need to know. Like I said, if you have any questions, leave them in a comment below or check out the channel on Twitch and come and ask me live over there. If you've enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, then please add our creator code on PUBG. That's a great way you can help us out totally for free. I'll put a little thing at the end of this video that tells you all about that and how to do it. And then if you ever buy any G-Coin or survivor passes within PUBG, then we get a little kickback from that from PUBG. So thank you for watching today. I hope you found the video useful. My name's Ben, we are the Beard Guys, and I'll see you next time. I just wanted to drop you all a quick message to tell you about our PUBG creator code. As a PUBG partner, we have a creator code which you can add to your account, which means whenever you purchase anything in game, PUBG will give us a commission. Whether you're buying season passes, G-Coin bundles, or anything else that requires cash in PUBG, if you have our code added, then you'll be helping us out without costing yourself a penny extra. It's a great way to support the channel, and it really does help keep us making PUBG content for you. Plus, it's easy to set up and you'll only ever have to do it once. To add our code, first visit accounts.pubg.com and then log in or create an account. Once you've logged in, connect your Xbox, PlayStation or Steam account on the linked accounts tab, then go to the Creator Appreciation Program section and type the Beard Guys into the box or find us from the drop-down list. Then just click submit and you're all done. A massive thank you to everybody who has used our code. Your support is absolutely vital for us and it really makes a huge difference.